Welcome, everyone, to the Hidden Power of Language. I am Dr. Tammy West, and I guess I should begin with a short introduction of who I am and what this course is about. I think the best intro is just to do the one that I'm known for all over the world, I guess, and it would be this. I am Dr. Tammy West. I live just north of Nashville, Tennessee. I have 8 children and 8 grandchildren, and in 1995, I spent time in a mental hospital. So, welcome to your session. Ah. Now, the children, it's just fun. I mean, I open this way for 2 reasons. The first reason is it's just kind of fun to get a reaction from people. I have 8 children and 8 grandchildren. Truth be told, blended family. I'll probably talk about more about that later, maybe. But the mental hospital, I want you to know I don't mean to be flip about it, but it really underlies so much of who I am and what I do and what I talk about. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed. It's my story. So it has led me though to be here to you. So that is who I am. What about why this particular course? Why did I name this The Hidden Power of Language? Well, in 2009, I went back to school to study how women talk with one another about stress. I didn't want to get a PhD. It wasn't something that I said, oh, I have to go back to school and get a PhD. But I couldn't find any research to help explain what I was noticing during these conversations. So one night during a walk, and I wrote this in the book, my husband said, well, if you can't find research about it, why don't you go back to school and research it yourself? Which was like famous last words. So I did. And in 2013, I finished my PhD. And then shortly thereafter, I wrote the book, The Stress Club, targeting mainly women about these conversations. And one of the things that I learned early on was this the way that I studied language is not something that's well known, especially here in the US. The UK, Australia, New Zealand, quite a bit of research there in this field has been done, and a lot of the publications come from there. But in the US, not so much. So I decided it was time for me to talk to you about this concept of the hidden power of language. Now, the reason that we're starting off with the coffee personality style is because I sent it out and everybody's taken it, but I said you won't know what the styles are until our first class. So I don't want to make you wait. But it's also nice to start with just a foundation of who you are, something about you. So even though there's more than personality that affects the way that you use language, it's just a nice place to start. The word choices can come because of our personality or gender or many, many things. Notice I said the word choices. The words that we pick are choices. And that is the hidden power of language because we don't often know why we do that. So, a couple of notes about the format, and then we'll jump right into content. You might be watching this on Facebook in my group or on my page, or you might be watching it on YouTube. So what I've done is I'm pre-recording the sessions. I won't tell you right now that we're going to have session 2. I do know what session 2 is, but the rest of the sessions, I'm kind of waiting. I'm going to record and then see what seems to naturally follow. So I'm pre-recording the sessions, and then on Facebook, both in my group and on my page, I will host a watch party starting this Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. And I will also put it on YouTube. So I have all 3 of those open. I will be present while the pre-recorded video is playing, which is what you're seeing now. And I will be putting comments in the section. So in my Stress Club Facebook group, that's a women's private Facebook group, and probably what I'll call the bonus content will be geared toward that group. On my professional page, it will be more geared professionally, and on YouTube, it might be something different. So I'll put that content there, and I will also post in the comments or a new post about the next day. I'll do the afternoon of, I'll tell you what's coming the next day. I might put some links and things for you to get extra information. So that's the gist of it. Now let's jump right into content. I'm going to share my screen with you during most of this. So let's hope that it all goes well. don't think that I'll have any sound, but who knows? I just might. So I'm going to go ahead and say, there we go. Share. So my intent is, and I'm going to go ahead and set my timer, that each of these sessions will be about 30 minutes long. And so I'm going to set my timer for 20 minutes because I think we've already been together for a few minutes, because I do want to respect your time. And I thank you so much for spending your day with me. So we're starting this course, The Hidden Power of Language, with what type of coffee are you? This is a personality / communication style assessment that I wrote about 10 years ago. I've changed it just a little bit, but not much. And I think the reason that I think this is a fun way to do it, Myers-Briggs, DISC, all of those are great and they're very deep. They have letters and different things for you to remember. I wanted this to be fun and quick. I'm going to assign you, or you're going to be assigned based on your quiz, to one of 4 types of coffee. And I can almost guarantee you won't forget what type of coffee you are when you are in conversation with someone or when you're thinking about it. So that's why I did this. If you haven't taken the quiz, it's on my website. It's very simple. I will put a link in the comment sections wherever you are watching. But even if you haven't taken it yet, you'll be able to glean some things from this. So just a couple of quick stories. When you think about your personality style, my husband and I took a cruise a few years ago, which he did not like, by the way. And if you've ever been on a cruise or on a bus or even on an airplane, the bathrooms are very small. This is kind of personal, but on the cruise ship, you're in the bathroom, and I'm coming from a woman's perspective, sitting to use the restroom. Okay. So there's the sink, and the toilet is, just maybe a foot and a half, I don't know, from the sink and the toilet are together. So as I leaned to sit over, I whacked my head on the sink. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Second story. So there's the bruise. This is some emails I'm going to show you. So I was on an airplane. This is a few years ago. And thank goodness for Wi-Fi on airplanes, because I'm getting ready to land. I don't remember where. And I remembered that I had not booked a rental car. So I got on the national car and I did the rental. Then I realized, I don't know why I realized, at the email that I got, that I had rented for the wrong week. And then I did it again and realized I had rented for the wrong day. And then I did it again and realized I had rented at the wrong airport. It took me 4 times to get my rental done. What is the point in me telling you this? I mean, there are other stories to tell you for sure. And again, it's more than just personality, but it factors into it. My mind goes a million different directions. I'm very creative. I jump from thing to thing. Sometimes I say that I can get a lot done. Even with this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get all of this recorded in a couple of days. We'll see how that goes. My style is very sort of all over the place. We'll come back to. So I don't know, raise your hand if you're watching, put it in the comment section. Is your style all over the place too? Do you just wonder sometimes how you even get through the day? So, I forgot to put this on here. This was another thing that I did. So my father-in-law passed away, I don't know how many years ago. And at the time I was living in California, and I went to a restaurant at Huntington Beach, and I met up with this wonderful woman. And this was my son's boss a few years prior. So we took a picture and we posted on Facebook, and we said, "Wish you were here," and tagged him. The problem was that I didn't tag him. His name is the same as his grandfather's. So I tagged his dead grandfather on Facebook. Anyway, that's enough about me. So think about you. What communication style might you be? There are 4. I'm going to show you what the quiz looks like in writing, because I do want you to know there is a little bit of a limitation doing it online. If you want to take it on paper, send me, put a note in the comment section. I will actually probably put it on my website so you can download it. So there were 18 questions on the quiz. And the questions revolved around 2 aspects of your style. One is how you relate to people. And if you see the written quiz, these are S and L questions. I would have trouble talking if my hands were tied, or I wouldn't even notice if my hands were tied. So that is a S and L. That's a relational thing. The S stands for social, and the L stands for loner. You might also hear it called extrovert and introvert. Those words don't mean that you love people or hate people. They really just mean when you go to recharge, do you recharge by being with people or do you recharge more by being alone? So it's kind of a, how much time do I need or desire to spend with people? So about half the questions, not about, half the questions were that. The other questions were about how you work with on tasks. I frequently move from one task to another without completing, or I complete one task before moving to another. The letters there are Q and D. You didn't see this on your quiz if you took it online, but those questions revolve around tasks, and Q stands for quick and D stands for detailed. It doesn't mean that you are careful versus not careful. It just means you tend to move more fast on tasks or you tend to be more detail oriented. So if you took this on paper, you're going to add those up and eventually you're going to come up with a line that puts you into one of the four categories: cappuccino, espresso, decaf, or instant. The reason that this is a limitation doing it online is what I will tell you. I hope you can see my arrow on the screen. The closer your line is to the center, the more you're going to see a lot of overlap in the styles. Because look, the big disclaimer is none of this is just one style, no matter what personality quiz you take. It just categorizes you based on some general, well, some specifics, but it doesn't plug you into a hole. The further your line is out, and basically this means the more you answered Q versus D or S versus L and the combination of those two, the more I'm going to go through the descriptions, which I'm going to start in a minute, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, that is so me. So if you want to take the quiz on paper, just let me know. Now let's go through a brief description. And I will put this document, I think I'm going to have a new title of my webpage by the time you see this video. And I will put the online quiz, the paper quiz, and then a download for the quiz or for the descriptions. So let's first talk about instant. Please put in the comments, because I'm with you during the watch party and on YouTube at 10 a.m. Central. I'm with you. So I want to see your comments. Tell me if you are an instant. So instants tend to be more loners. They need a little more time on their own, and they tend to work at a quicker pace. Here's what we love about them and their strengths. They tend to be honest and direct and clear and brief and exhibit a fair amount of emotional control. You don't tend to be seeing them up and down all over the place. Here can be the barriers. And this is the way people tend to see you sometimes if you're an instant. They can be seen as aggressive, blunt, dictatorial, impatient, demanding. So I don't know if you're raising your hand, if that's you, or if you know someone who's an instant, but let me close this part by saying, why do we call them an instant? Well, if you are going to make an instant coffee, when do you want that coffee? You want it now, right? So that's why I call it an instant. So it doesn't mean that you like instant coffee. It just means that if you are an instant, you tend to be a now kind of person. Now, if you remember that graph, there were four quadrants. So there was two opposites and two opposites. So the very most different you could be from an instant is to be the next style, the cappuccino. Again, put that comment in there if it's you or a friend. If you know someone, you might not want to tag them if you're saying it as a bad thing, but tell me about you and the people you live and work with. Let's go ahead and talk about why I said cappuccino. When you think of a cappuccino, you tend to think of a coffee that's sweet and warm, something you might have together with a friend. It tends to be sort of a relational drink. So cappuccinos tend to be a little higher on the social score. They tend to need more time with people, and they work a little more slowly at more of a detailed pace. What do we love about them? Here's their strengths. Cappuccinos tend to be good listeners and observant. They tend to be sincere and show appreciation, and they're great advocates for other people, not necessarily themselves, but very relational, great listeners, great advocates. Cappuccinos, this is what can give you trouble. This can be what other people see from you that they struggle with. Cappuccinos can tend to be maybe a little chatty. They tend to avoid conflict. Remember, they're great advocates for other people, but not necessarily themselves. They can be indecisive, And mainly they would be indecisive because even if it's just the dinner conversation, what do you want for dinner? There's this risk that if it's the wrong answer, that you might not like them. So they can be indecisive. And they tend to show emotional displays, sometimes from what we might call passive aggressive, from silent to violent, if you've ever heard that, or from mute to brute, because they'll hold things in, trying to avoid that conflict until it bubbles to the surface. And remember, I'm going to say it again several times. Style is many things influence style, gender, and all kinds of things. So I'm not boxing you into anything. So instants and cappuccinos tend to be very, very opposite. Now let's go into our next two styles. Espressos. When you drink an espresso, think about what happens after someone has an espresso. You tend to be full of energy, right? Up, positive, sometimes crazy. So espressos tend to be higher on the social scale. People, and they tend to work at a quick pace. So they're social and quick. Now, my style, when I told you sometimes I tend to be all over the place, it does not mean that all espressos are all over the place. But when you see someone who tends to be more creative and quick and fast and moving from one thing to another, that's my style. So espressos, let's talk about what we love about you. Here are your strengths. You tend to be creative, open, brainstorm. You love a brainstorm. You love ideas. You tend to be energetic and look for the positive. That's what we love about you. Espressos, here's what sometimes people perceive about you that can be challenging in communication. Espressos can also be chatty, but in a different way. Cappuccinos can be chatty, more about getting information and talking and asking questions, whereas espressos are talk, 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 talk. They can exaggerate and overpromise and approximate. That's what I was telling you earlier. And it's not that most espressos, it's not that they're lying. They really think they can. I really think that I can get all these things recorded in 2 hours time. I'm like, yes, I can do it. And sometimes espressos can be seen as insensitive, which can drive an espresso crazy. Like, how could you think I'm insensitive? Because they're people. But remember the chatty part, talk, 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 and the positive part. So the example I use, and I've never seen this happen, but I could see it happen, is maybe you have a dog, an older dog, and your dog dies, and the espresso says, oh my gosh, well, maybe you could get a puppy, because they're trying to be positive and support you. And you're like, could you give me time to grieve? That seems kind of insensitive. Hopefully that made sense. Our last style, which are the very opposites, the instants and cappuccinos tend to be very opposite on the scale, and then the espressos and the decafs. And that's our last style, is the decaf. Decafs tend to, well, first of all, what happens when someone drinks a decaf? Nothing really, which is a terrible thing to say. When I say it live, it's like, I'm sorry, you realize I didn't mean it. It just means that decafs tend to be very stable. When you drink a decaf, there's not an up and down. They tend to be the stable people in your world. So on the personality scale, they tend to be more loners, need a little bit more time alone, and they work at a detailed pace. Sorry for the ding. I thought I had is that my alarm? No, we have 6 minutes and 45 seconds. So let's talk about you, decafs. Here's what we love about you. Decafs tend to speak with a purpose, not being super chatty. They're good problem solvers. They tend to be detail-oriented and methodical. For those of you maybe around my age, you might remember the old commercials for E.F. Hutton. When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. So they speak with a purpose, details. Decafs, these are the things people can perceive about you that they have a hard time with. They can sometimes see you as unemotional and distrustful. It doesn't mean that you are unemotional and distrustful, but because of that stable nature and also the detail oriented, sometimes you have a hard time letting things go, and people think that you think they can't do it. Critical and rigid because, well, the rules are the rules. And also difficulty making decisions, but not for the same reason. Remember, cappuccinos sometimes have a hard time with decisions, but it's about the relational aspect and wanting to be liked. For decafs, it's oftentimes about getting it just perfect. Just give me one more hour, just give me one more day because I want to get it just right. So those are the 4 basic styles. I will refer to them. But when we think about the hidden power of language, we need to start with us and our style. We all have a certain way that we default to, and our styles can change over time. But it's nice to know how to communicate with those styles. So when I'm doing this live, I have people get in groups. So I'm not going to, oh, don't forget, by the way, I think I forgot to say espressos, decafs, put it in the comment section, you or somebody in your world. Let us in a little bit. When I do this live, I have people make signs. Pretend like you're putting a sign on your work doorway or on your somewhere in your home where people come to see you. And your sign is going to say, we are espressos or cappuccinos. When you communicate with me, I would love for you to post a picture. If you make a sign, that would be kind of fun. Hashtag it, we are coffee. But I just came up with a few things. If you had a sign to let people know what works for you, if you're an instant, your sign might be, tell me what you want, tell me how long you need, and be brief, send me an email. Could be. If you are a cappuccino, look how different this is. Your sign might say, come in and talk. It doesn't mean they have all day, but at least say hello, say goodbye. I appreciate it. Thank you. Be more relational with me. If you are an espresso, your sign might say, come in and talk. Let's have a good time for a few minutes, maybe not forever. Ask me for my ideas. Show some interest. Let's brainstorm. And if you're a decaf, your sign might say, provide me with details. Be brief, send me an email, right? So those are our 4 styles. I have 3.5 minutes left. I want to encourage you to, on YouTube, on my Facebook page, on my Facebook group, have some comments because I'm there with you right now. I'm watching what you're writing. I want to answer your questions. I want to help you. I want to guide you. This is just the beginning of our time together. But I want to end with a quick story on why it's important. Years ago, I used to do contract work with a couple of different seminar companies, and that would just mean I would go out and train clients for them. For the first company, I had to go to their corporate headquarters to certify. What that meant was I had to present an hour's worth of content. Well, I thought I would be presenting that content to a group of people, but it turned out that that group of people was just one people, and that man's name was Bob. And so Bob comes in, he's heard me tell this story before. Bob comes in and he sits down and he has like a handful of pens of all different colors. And I did my hour and he was taking notes in different colors the whole time. Now, I don't have time to ask you because you're not, well, I can't because you're not with me, but I would say, what style do you think that might be? Decaf. He was being very detail oriented about my presentation. After the presentation was over, he gave me copious feedback and what I did wrong and what I should have done. And anyway, it was like, wow. 6 months later, I had to go back and certify again because I was changing the business that I did with them. And Bob emailed me. And so I emailed Bob and I said, I wanted to set aside a time to talk. And I said, I'm emailing. I said, could you talk at noon? And he wrote back and his email said, that will be 1:00 my time. And I'll be certifying with another trainer then. We can always talk on the phone or once you get here. I have faith in you. And he put a smiley face. And that just rocked my world. Language is so powerful, whether it is spoken or whether it is written, because the fact that he addressed me in my relational style took my anxiety level and lowered it. I was excited to go. I was ready to go because he said he had faith in me, because he put a smiley face in my email. That's what I want us to learn during this time with the hidden power of languages. How can I understand the language that I use, like Bob did that day with me? And how can I also receive language better from other people? And that is where we are going to go. So I hope you've enjoyed your time today. Tomorrow's session, I know for sure, will be on what language is. Because if we're going to do sessions and I'm saying there's a hidden power, Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you what that hidden power is. So, in my relational style, love and hugs to you all, and I will see you tomorrow.